Quiet night at the office. No phone calls, no messages, nothing but junk mail and overdue bills to keep me company. Seems nobody wants to hire a real private dick anymore, a professional like me. A guy who does the detective work nobody else wants to do. A guy who wears hats and walks around in a black and white world. I began contemplating a more profitable line of work, like politics.
We are the show you want to know. It's time to talk to you.
All right, folks, good afternoon and welcome to the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. I'm Joe Mangiacotti, and you can join the conversation for the remainder of this hour at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. You can also text the show on our text line, 617-297-8388. 617-297-8388. Appears on a screen here in the studio in real time, and we try to incorporate it into the conversation. Don't forget the station does stream 24/7 on the TuneIn app. If you don't have TuneIn, seconds to download it. Punch in WCRN. You're going to see our cool logo. Do me a favor, hit the like button, and we know you're there, and then we're easy to find. And I also stream the show on my social media platforms at Joe Mangi Show, M-A-N-G-I, Joe Mangi Show. Facebook, X, Twitch TV, LinkedIn profile, and we do stream live to Rumble on the Joe Mangiacotti Show channel there on Rumble. That's later loaded up to Twitch TV. So multiple ways to watch and multiple ways to listen. And again, you can text the show in real time or just simply call 508-871-7000. Today, behind the glass, flying the board today, he'll get you set up and into the studio for two-way talk and conversation. A lot to talk about. Just coming in a little earlier, you had Mark Carney, Prime Minister of Canada, in the Oval with Donald Trump. A little different than the last head of state, Zelensky, there. So it was a very different tone, and I think they were very cautious about now. I think Trump even made reference to this being a much friendlier and also friendlier between nations. And Carney had a very delicate needle to thread here. He did run almost as the anti-Trump to stand up to Trump, and he was behind. He came from the back. Trump laid a lot of comments on him, a lot of compliments, I should say, and said, Canada will always be friends, but clearly pointed out they'd be better off as a state. He keeps going back to the military advantages, that we protect them. We always will. He told them, we'll always protect them. So you had Carney, who is a former central banker. He has ties to Canada and UK. He was elected just a month ago with the Liberal Party, and it was a comeback because they were trailing behind, and I think it was the Canada's not for sale. As a matter of fact, Carney said something to the effect of there are just some places that aren't for sale. We're in one of them, meaning the Oval Office of the White House, Buckingham Palace. And he said, Canada's not for sale, and Trump said, never say never. So he really did troll him, but it was friendly enough. Look, Trump imposed the 25% tariffs that was on Canadian steel and aluminum and some other trade restrictions that go beyond the USMCA. And he claims that some tariffs are are in response to, just like Mexico, the low interception of fentanyl at the northern border. So that's, I guess you'd have to call it a punitive tariff for not doing their part in stopping both illegal crossings from their country into our country, but also the drug trade, the fentanyl trade. And why wouldn't they? In Mexico, if you had a doubt about Mexico at all, with the president, she came out, within 48 hours ago and said, no, I don't want your help to eliminate she's afraid of them. So is every president for decades. It's a very different world in how they do it there. And she's rightly afraid. And she doesn't want to get that tough because what would happen if you don't ask somebody. But it's not a good situation there. Now, Canada is a different story. Why aren't they doing more to protect their border and our border? Why don't they do more to stop fentanyl crossings there? $2.7 billion in goods cross the U.S.-Canada border daily. And that was Trump's message or point with Trudeau when he was at Mar-a-Lago. It's a $200 billion deficit to us that Canada makes off the United States. And Trump said, and if you didn't have that, what would happen? He said that would be the end of Canada. Now, that's an odd thing for a prime minister to say about his own country. Really is. And cars is a big thing here. We get a lot of cars. A lot of cars are made in Mexico. A lot of cars are made in Canada. And this is part of this whole bigger picture, is to bring back manufacturing of cars back to the United States. And part of that is the tariffs, that it's just not worth it for them to build it offshore or out of the country. Now, Canada is the number one export market for 36 of our states. 60% of United States crude oil and 85% of our electricity imports come from Canada. They also supply critical minerals. It's about 34 that are really important. Essential to the U.S. national defense and tech, for that matter. So Carney had tweeted the other day, President Trump, I have agreed to meet next Tuesday in Washington. We'll focus on addressing immediate trade pressures in the future economic and security relationship between our two sovereign nations. So he has to be delicate in this. He certainly doesn't want it to devolve into a Zelensky type situation. He dressed accordingly. I think everyone's got to learn that lesson from Zelensky. Put a tie on. You go into the Oval Office. Say thank you for anything that, you should be saying thank you for. So who are the stakeholders that we got going here? Well, we got American manufacturers and consumers, right? We are facing higher prices and trade instability. I don't think any instability is going to be long term. In a dinner last night, someone at the table turned to me and said, explain the tariffs. And I said, the answer to that is relax. Tariffs aren't here for long term. They're here to bring them to the negotiating table, to realign the trade agreements. And he's actually poking China. He's going to create a very difficult situation for China where they have no alternative but to talk and come to the table and have a conversation. Their economy is so fragile. I know the media doesn't want to report it. I know they talk about it or reference it, but it is. And as we slow down on buying the junk out of China, their own citizens aren't buying it, and Europe's not picking up the slack. They need to be a player in the trade. It's not just all about the supersonic missiles and jets, and their Navy fleet has surpassed ours, by the way, which isn't a great thing. So we also have that whole aspect, right? Military and defense sectors, both, and this and back to Canada. Both nations depend on stable mineral and energy exchanges. Again, Canada's not for sale. Trump, never say never. So he's just refusing to let that go. So we have these two leaders on both sides, and we got everybody in the room. Marco was there. Media. Did you watch it? 508-871-7000. The media just seemed like they wanted a gotcha moment. They wanted to provoke something. They didn't want, this is a very rare thing. Unlike the previous administration, Trump invites the cameras and the media into cabinet meetings, Oval Office meetings. He'll stop and talk to the media just more than any recent president, or probably any president. And you never know where the conversation's going to go. Press secretaries under Trump, they're like, man, you can prep or whatever, you're going to go, but you really don't know where the conversation's going to go. So this is a very transparent, very accessible administration. And I think we need to appreciate that, because we would have never seen, they never would have allowed the cameras into the Oval Office like that. And not because of the access, it's because of the Biden situation. Would he have nodded off in the middle of the conversation? Would he have kept up with the conversation? And I'm not being mean-spirited here. This is a legitimate, question or pointing out. We watched him nod off on TV and at the G7, wander off in the garden. So it was a risk they weren't going to take, is put cameras in an Oval Office meeting, or in the last cabinet meeting, I think it was Joe Biden running it. So Trump's repeated calls here to make Canada the 51st state, it's stirred up some outrage among some Canadians, and it's kicking in some national pride. But again, Trump is and has done incredible negotiations over his lifetime. Read his book. He always says you ask outrageous, you shoot way up here, you settle down here, which is what you wanted all along. And what he wants with Canada is a fair trade agreement. He doesn't want American taxpayers to foot the bill for Canada to the tune of $200 billion every year. Not our responsibility. And Trump's point, passively made, and maybe not so passively made, is that they enjoy a tremendous amount of what would be worth a lot of money with the security. They get, by default, they get security because they're attic. They're they like America's attic, right? We forget Canada's there once in a while, then we go up there, we kick around and find some cool stuff, But no one's really going to do much to Canada or touch. I mean, because that's real too close for comfort for us. So we wouldn't allow it. And it's kind of sandwiched in. I mean, we've got bases in Alaska. And why do you think Greenland is so important? But look, we're coming up to the time to take our first break here on the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN Radio Central. Reminding you can also join me on Facebook and X, as well as Twitch TV, LinkedIn profile, of course, with Rumble. We're going to take our first break here on the Tuesday afternoon. Come back in 2 and 10, folks. Stick with us. Life is full of changes. Some we choose, some we don't. But how we handle change, that makes all the difference. I'm Joe Mangiacotti, and I'm bringing you Handling Change, a brand new show here on WCRN. Every week, we'll tackle life's biggest challenges and profile a local business or service that can help you navigate them. From career shifts to health, finances, and family. Whatever life throws your way, we've got you covered. Don't miss Handling Change. Thursdays at 10 a.m. on Radio Central, WCRN, 830 a.m., where New England comes to talk.
This is Jerry Doherty, host of Making Money Last, right here on WCRN. Like all business owners, I'm interested in why people choose to work with Boston Independence Group. So I asked my clients. The most common response, Jerry does not try to be all things to all people. Boston Independence Group is specialized, focused solely on retirement planning. My customers enjoy the difference. We do one thing, and we do it exceptionally well. Help other people live better in retirement. That's it. If you're ready to retire or making plans to retire, we can do for you what we've done for hundreds of other retirees throughout New England. Live better in retirement. Just give me a call. I'll show you how. My toll-free number is 877-772-1776. Again, that number is 877-772-1776. And you can visit us on the web at bostonindependencegroup.com. bostonindependencegroup.com.
ZT's Italian Ristorante is where to make Mother's Day a lasting memory. Show your mother that you understand. You finally understand. A mother's love is just like a fine meal prepared by an authentic Italian trattoria. ZT's menu will offer your mother a selection of ethereal Epicurean delights. Come eat at ZT's Restaurant on Route 9 East in Westboro. Your mother will love it. Make it Mother's Day at ZT's Italian Ristorante, Route 9 East in Westboro.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second segment here in the Tuesday afternoon edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on Radio Central AM 830 WCRN. You can join the conversation at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Lines are open and available today. We'll get you set up. And, of course, you can always text in at 617-297-8388. I'm reminding you that we're streaming, so go to Facebook or X or even Rumble and do that. But this call by Trump, right, to make Canada the 51st state stirred some outrage among some Canadians, may even have pushed Carney into the prime minister seat. And did you catch the Meet the Press interview? Ted, did you see any of this? So he was
depressed.
Yeah, I think Kristen Welker was a little depressed at the end of it. I mean, and you know, here's the thing: Trump takes these interviews. He gives these interviews to these people who he knows do not like him and have talked badly about him and come in with loaded questions. And he called her on it in the interview. He said, "Look, even the way you're asking this is all with a negative spin, negative tone," and he told her to her face, you know, you guys are the worst, one of the worst. Anyway, it was a pretty interesting thing. Go watch it if you haven't got a chance. And I'm watching it because I think this is a great journalist. And that's the other thing when she talks about journalists. Actually, David just made me think of David, what's his name? The Barstool sports guy. Prono, Dave something. He got into it with an interview where she's saying, I'm asking the questions. I'm the journalist here. He owns a big media business. He said, I'm the journalist. Anyway, he closed the computer and ended it. But the point is, the Meet the Press interview, very interesting. They sparred over tariffs and economy. And he blasted her for just dishonest interview. And I think that every one of these so-called journalists should really be humble, because at any time you can just call them out on the fact that they either knowingly covered up Joe Biden's cognitive decline and an inability to hold that office, or they really didn't see it and notice it, and therefore you're so bad at your job, you shouldn't have the job. If you were not able to understand or not even curious enough to talk or ask questions when he's shaking hands with invisible people, falling up the stairs 3 times in a row, when he's wandering off, when he's nodding off, when all of this is happening, and you don't have the journalistic curiosity or integrity to ask what's going on. And I'm sure Peppermint Patty there threatened to take your credentials away or ban you from the White House press room or whatever it was that they bullied you into. A real journalist would have asked the questions, and there's a few there, but people like her, no. So he told Meet the Press, the border is an artificial line that prevents us from forming a beautiful country. Now that might be true, but a artificial line is a sovereign line. That's our whole point on our southern border too. We're a sovereign nation, and without borders, you aren't a sovereign nation. And didn't sovereignty beat what was the horse that came in second at the Kentucky Derby? It was Meteor or Journal. What was the name of it? It was just, I found it interesting that sovereignty beat whatever the name of the second horse was, something to do with media or journalism. Now, that remark has been called imperialistic, provocative, disrespectful by Canadian media. Carney's firing back. we are in a once-in-a-lifetime crisis, and I was elected to stand up to the U.S. president. Good luck with that. Trump responded, I'm not sure what he wants me to say, or excuse me, I'm not sure I know what he wants to see me about, but I guess he wants to make a deal. And that's all Trump wants. He just wants to make a deal across the board with all of these countries, and he's forcing them to come to the table. So Carney's visit has been seen, as a high risk, high reward diplomacy act going on here, but it's really balancing diplomacy without appearing, quite frankly, too submissive or whipped. So he has a very fine needle to thread. And I hope he saw how quick an Oval Office meeting can devolve if you misstep. And I'm sure he was thinking of that because by my count, I think he only injected maybe 3 times. And again, the media wanted to drag things out. They were looking for the guy. And he kind of left it with a zinger there to Carney about Canada's indebtedness to us and so forth. And then he just said to the press, that's it. And he kind of ended it before Carney could move about it. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. 508-871-7000. Don't forget you can tune in and watch live streaming from our palatial but not overly ostentatious studios in Westborough, Massachusetts. Let's go to the phones. Mark has been waiting patiently. Hey, Mark, what say you?
I don't know if you're old enough. You're probably too young to remember this. Remember, in the old days, they used to have what they call a carnival circuit, start around this time of year.
Yeah.
These carnivals would come up from down south, and they'd come up here, and they'd run the circuit all the way up to Bangor, Maine. And,
Sure.
Yeah. And they used to have carnival barkers, okay?
Mm-hmm.
These were con men, loud,
Yeah, the ring game, the toss game, all that crap.
They could talk the shirt off your back and then just be stupid enough to buy it back from them. That's how good these guys were. And that's what's his name from Canada? Carney?
Mark
Is that
Carney.
his name?
Yeah, Mark
Yeah.
Carney.
Yeah, okay, he's one of them, okay? He's like a carnival barker who's playing to what they used to call the cheap seats, right? Oh, go Canada, okay, all this patriotism and all this crap. In the end, he knows he's going to have to bend the knee to Trump because, quite simply, if you compare the two economic powers, it's a 600-pound bear getting into a fight with a 200-pound bear. Who do you think's going to win that fight?
Get your tickets here.
Mark, I agree with you 100%. I think I said it the other day that, look, all of these countries, they cannot go toe-to-toe an economy with us. They need the purchasing power of the United States. And they've been taking it. And this Trump hasn't, this is not a presidential thing. He talked about this 30, 40 years ago. You can go watch the old Phil Donahue or whatever the hell he was on Oprah even, when he was talking about the unfair trade and tariffs in the 80s and 90s. He talked about this, that we've been getting screwed for decades. And it's always, well, America's so rich. Now, why are we rich? We're rich because, yes, we have a great economy. We live great. Even our poorest people still live better than the majority of the rest of the planet. And we also have the reserve dollar. And that's so important. I've stressed this over and over, guys, that the fact that, the petrodollar is the American dollar and that we trade in that, that's why things, when the BRIC nations comes up, Gaddafi, his biggest mistake was trying to get a currency in Africa and replace the oil. He's no more. So that's why we can have these wars that go 20 years and cost us billions upon billions of dollars, and we still plug along. So nobody can go for any length of time with a tariff on them from us. So that's why they have to talk. And 100%. I don't even know if it's a 200-pound bear. I think it's like a dog getting into the ring with a bear when it comes Canadian $200 billion a year for them to function. They have to count on us. So, Mark's gone. Thank you for the call, Mark. So it's absolutely, Mark, I see your point. I agree with you. That's why he's coming. He has to talk tough. He has to follow through. What got him elected? right? But it was just the timing. Trump's trash talking, calling Trudeau governor, all of that got them riled up, got this guy come from 20 points down to the Liberal Party, and he get in there. So the impact of this, what are we looking at? All right, a successful meeting can de-escalate trade tensions. And it's not going to it's not happening right. It is happening right now, but it's not ending today. This is going to be drawn out. This is going to be a constant, ebb and flow going on here for a while. But the idea is to de-escalate trade tensions, stabilize the North American economy. I understand Trump's point. I get all that. But anything short of them actually becoming a state or a territory is an incredibly lucrative, fair trade agreement between the two nations. A breakdown might accelerate a full-blown trade war, and that would hit energy, manufacturing, and yes, even food prices. We wouldn't be getting that real maple syrup stuff. Well, what's the bigger picture on this? It's not just about tariffs either, guys. It's about national identity, the sovereignty, and global influence. I mean, Canada was part of, almost a lot of us were part of England at one time, or Britain, right? I mean, it's not that long ago that they've, officially cut from Britain and the Queen and so forth. But they have their identity. They're not known as a, incredible military might because they've got America right next to them. We share 3,000-mile border? In Trump's rhetoric and trash talking around absorbing Canada, it does feed into larger concerns about American global assertiveness, right? Everybody's very concerned about this. But what does he comes out of? He comes out of the gate in his second term. Canada becoming a state. We buy Greenland. Repo the Panama Canal. That's a lot going on. Media doesn't know which way to look, where to come at this. And they, as usual, get bogged down in not the story stuff. And they don't ask the right questions. And Carney's resistance, it could shape Canada's future path, also with NATO, China, and more. And that came up in the Oval a little while ago, before I came on air. And Carney made it for one of the few, 3 times that he did speak, he actually spoke about, no, we haven't done a deal with China, and we haven't talked to China at all. So let me get it this straight here, right? We wanted to slap tariffs on one of our best trading partners, and then we invite him for lunch. But that's how Trump does it. Have you noticed that Trump has no problem being in the room or going to lunch or just being cordial to people that are so mean to him and that he also blasted away? Hey, we're going to take a mid-show break here on the Tuesday edition. Hold on, folks. We'll be back in 2 and 10.
Time now for the forecast from the Boston Independence Group Weather Center. Call Jerry Doherty today at 877-772-1776. Retirement is within reach.
I'm meteorologist Sherry Spear, and here's the latest Boston 25 weather on Radio 830 WCRN. This afternoon, we've got some scattered rain as well as downpours and thunderstorms. So it's going to be another soaker out there. We've got the potential for a few areas that experience localized flooding, and this is something to watch straight through the evening commute. Overnight tonight, those showers ease up. We're going to see some drizzle and some mist overnight, and tomorrow's going to be a little drier, partly cloudy for your Wednesday plans with some afternoon hit or miss style thunderstorms. I'm meteorologist Sherry Spear, and you can hear Boston 25 live for the morning drive weekdays on AM 830 WCRN.
More live and local radio is next. Stay tuned to Radio Central 830 WCRN.
Having trouble with your cell phone? You need to visit Wireless World at 757 Grafton Street in Worcester. They fix any device, including cell phones, tablets, and computers, as well as game systems. Before you buy or replace it, bring it to Wireless World at 757 Grafton Street in Worcester. Need or want a new phone? You won't believe the prices at Wireless World, 757 Grafton Street in Worcester. Before you buy new or replace your current phone, check out Wireless World, 757 Grafton Street. That's Route 122 in Worcester.
The best Italian cuisine served by some of the nicest folks you'll ever meet is at Ziti's Italian Trattoria. It's fine Italian cooking at the Speedway Shopping Center, 290 Turnpike Road in Westboro. It's like sitting down with your family for an authentic home-cooked Italian meal. From intimate dinners to catering for events of all sizes. From pizzas and calzones to classic Italian dinners. Every meal at Ziti's is one you'll remember. Head on down to Ziti's, 290 Turnpike Road in Westboro.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second half of the Tuesday afternoon edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN Radio Central. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. That's 508-871-7000. Hey, Conclave starts tomorrow, right? Pope Francis passed away here. It ended his papacy. It began back in 2013. If you didn't know a couple of things, he was the first Jesuit pope. First from the Americas, first non-European in over 1,200 years. And his leadership was marked by progressive stances on climate change, interfaith dialogue, and even more openness in LGBTQ plus individuals, though often criticized as doctrinally ambiguous. But where is the church going to go now? Is it going to continue on that path? He again, when the guy is going to lecture the United States, or specifically Trump, about our sovereign border, in our wall, well, he lives behind a 40-foot wall at the Vatican. Yeah. Why don't you take that wall down and then lecture the United States? Or how about this? Just don't lecture the United States, period, on that issue. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Let's jump to the phones. Ken's waiting patiently. Hey, Ken, what say you?
Hi, Joe.
Hey.
Fill in some names. Dave Portnoy.
Oh, Portnoy, that's it, yeah. Did you see that? He just chewed up the reporter and ended the interview, and I get his point. That they're so, for media that was so poor at their job, or so complicit or part of the cover up, they should not have this cocky attitude, Ken.
But that they always will.
Yeah. Which is why their approval ratings less than Congress, and their ratings are in the toilet.
They're not in the job of journalism to be journalists. We know that. Come on now.
Well, they're activists, and it's
bingo.
Sad.
That's what the professors are teaching them to, and actually, that's why they went to college. They had this idea of, they're the next, the journalists back in
Walter Cronkites and
no. The guys that brought down Nixon. That's what I'm thinking of.
Oh, okay, yeah. Why am I drawing a blank on?
Because they don't deserve our repeating their name.
This is worse than Watergate. How many times do we hear that in the last 5 years? It's just crazy.
Bernstein.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
Yeah.
That wrote all the books.
The worst one was Bradley.
And they roll him out on CNN, right? And it's like, what did you do? All right. You were involved in that in Watergate, but I don't recall him or associated with like incredibly fascinating journalistic work other than that. Like he wrote his entire career off of Watergate.
Yep, you got it. But here's my
what else you do?
Today. With I go downstairs, eat lunch, and turn on the TV, and I think I'm pretty close to the beginning of that Carney in the
Oval
session.
Yeah.
And the very thing that popped in my mind is just think what the people that are characterizing Trump and Canada are thinking today, watching that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, put yourself in the shoes of CBC, who is all tied with the Liberal Party in Canada, blasting Trump all the time. And there's Trump opening up, it's so wonderful to meet with a Canadian Prime Minister. Oh, we're such buddies.
Yeah, and he piled on compliments. Oh, I watched that. What an interesting. Oh, that debate was great. It came from the back. It was a fantastic election. I mean, I don't. What did he talk? Maybe 3 times. By my count, I think he only actually spoke up like 3, maybe 4 times. I don't know. But he seemed very cautious about misstepping, and
But
Trump is just
then
rolling it out.
put yourself in the shoes of the voters who got all riled up. Oh, I'm voting for Carney because he's going to take the.
Yeah.
Well, what's he
Oh,
doing
I'm sure they're a
today?
little
He's
disappointed.
Buddy now. What's going on? Am I the fool?
Yeah. Now, see, that's a good point, Ken, because what were they expecting, quite frankly? What were you gonna trash talk or be rude to the leader of the free world in the Oval Office in the White House in Washington, D.C.? I mean, he's very limited in what he can do. And again, as I said a while ago, he certainly had to be conscious of it misstepping in Zelensky fashion and how quick that can take a left turn. If you disrespect the office, if you disrespect the country, you're going to be asked to leave the White House. That's not a great thing. You know what I'm saying? That's not a great thing to be asked to leave the White House because you're an idiot or you're rude or you don't say thank you for, in Zelensky's case, for hundreds of billions of dollars and in helping you, fight and to save your country. So, look, what was he going to do? Of course they're disappointed, right? I mean, what did they think they were electing?
But the comparison with Zelensky, they're total opposite versus Carney. You kidding me?
Yeah.
Carney has been an elitist from day one, all over the world. He's going to WEF meetings all the time. So he's not going to pull the Zelensky. Whereas Zelensky is a brave person, but without the pedigree of knowing how to handle the situation. He's a puppet to the oligarchs. So it's an entirely different situation. But just imagine the voters, and here's the kicker, is Trump took advantage of him, starting the way he did, making heads explode in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Then, if you watched as it went on, the later it went, he started poking at Carney. So he kind of backed off, though, all cordial, and then he got into the detail, and he really was poking him, and Carney had nothing to do but sit there and look up.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, I know they he talked a good game on the debate, and then they, stand up to the U.S. president. We're not going to take it. You got to put me in there. Okay, you're in there. Now, just like we have people who vote for the far left here, right? They expect this, King Jeffries and Crockett's putting her foot in her mouth again, right? But let's put a pin in that. Another day, another story. But that fringe way over there, they want that, quite frankly, just undiplomatic, lack of decorum. And I don't know if they think that's effective or whatever it is. So my question still says, so those people that did elect him, brought him from a 20 to 30 point, in the back for the Liberal Party, and the Liberal Party wins, they get to put in who they want. That's how Prime Minister works. What did they think he really was going to do? Go in there and slap Trump around or be aggressive in the Oval Office? In Trump, come on. You've watched him. Forget the TV. Forget the developed New York developer. You've seen him as president. Can you recall anyone that's outmaneuvered Trump in front of a camera?
No, I don't think I can. He's had plenty of practice.
Yeah. Yeah. The only way you can really get to it, like Biden did, insult his golf game. That's the only time Biden got a reaction to that debate was when he said he had a 8 handicap or he was a great golfer, and Trump was like, "Hey, I'm not taking that. I'm not standing for that at all." That pissed him off. But no.
Meanwhile, Joe,
Mm.
the big story about Canada since the election. The secession movement of Alberta.
Oh yeah, I think I mentioned that the other day, right? They're talking about so they don't want to be part of this whole thing. So, but do they want to stand alone or do they want to be absorbed by us? Ted, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I think all of the provinces of Canada should be thanking Trump, primarily for reinvigorating their electoral process.
Yeah, that's true too.
The Trump effect.
Yeah. I'm just surprised they ended up back with the Liberal Party up there. I thought they were going to do what, other countries have done, like Italy and what's Mali? What is he? Not Venezuela. The Trump, the Latin American Trump. Mali?
The Argentina.
Argentina. That's it. Yeah,
and that's a totally different personality than Polyev. Polyev was weak. That's the story behind what happened. If you listen to both of them, Carney and Polyev, the day after or the night of the election, they both sounded weak. So if you've got weak versus weak, who wins? The person who's in power.
Yeah.
So why bother changing if he's just exchanging week for week?
Yeah. I think Canada should have gone with the Conservative Party because I think they would have dealt better. They wouldn't have given the Canada up. They wouldn't do it, but they would have been able to deal with Trump, I think, differently, better in the bigger picture. This guy is at a disadvantage. Trump has him at a disadvantage because what's he going to do? He got elected with these unrealistic expectations, right? The fringe up there, they want him to be a disruptor. He's not. He can't be a disruptor. We're back to the economic might of the United States versus Canada. We're back to the protection by de facto that they get from the United States. And Trump, did you catch that part? I mean, he drove that home a couple of times about, we'll always protect you. I mean, you know what I'm saying? We'll always protect you, little buddy. You're okay, little buddy. So we'll always do that. Don't worry about that. Nobody's going to take you over, other than us. We're the only ones you need to worry about, but no one else is going to touch you, in essence.
Joe, another lesson from this, Polyev refused to talk to alternative media, the podcast. Big mistake.
Carney?
Anybody, wherever you are in the world, you grab a hold of the alternative media. You run with it if you want to be the next Trump or the Argentinian Melee or
don't you think that they would figure that out watching this past? Never mind the 2020. This 2024 election was made in the podcast alternative media. Kamala didn't do any because they were afraid to put her out there. Of course, the same with Joe. And Trump went on the Milk Boys. The Milk Boys were flying on Air Force One, or the Trump Force One, before he became president, for crying out loud. It's crazy.
So that's why Trump didn't jump ahead of Polyev. For one thing, he doesn't want to go over. He was also measuring the guy's weak. So, I got one mouse I can play with or another mouse. What difference is it?
Well, he's juggling a lot right now, right? Because he's got to bring in these agreements with other countries and get rid of these tariff deals. He's got to do that quickly. I say quickly in politics, quickly. But final word, Ken, we're against the clock.
Joe, China is the big story we need to talk about in future days.
Always. Thanks for the call. Appreciate it, folks. We're going to take our third and final break here on the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. China is absolutely the problem, and that's why Trump is putting them into a corner with these tariffs. All right, back on the other side. 2 and 10, folks.
Looking for a fuel and food stop that truly stands out? Experience the Yatco difference. At Yatco, we're dedicated to bringing you the best customer service, the highest quality products, and a commitment to making your life on the go easier. From top quality fuel to freshly stocked snacks and essentials, Yatco has you covered. Yatco has 15 convenient locations across central Massachusetts, and now our newest spot at 75 Quansigamut Ave in Worcester. For Yatco rewards, simply download the Yatco app and sign up. Friendly, clean, local, and always convenient. Make Yatco your favorite food and fuel stop. Stop by Yatco food and fuel stations today and experience the Yatco difference. Yatco, where every stop keeps you going.
Fuller Park is the place to play. Best ballpark in AAA.
And the Woo Sox come back. They walk it off.
With a bumper crop of red-hot Red Sox prospects on the way, don't miss a moment. Get your tickets today.
In the air to deep left center field. Back into the gap. This ball is gone.
Visit WooSox.com or call 508-500-8888 to see the Woo Sox play in April and May.
When you find yourself in a corner, you need someone who's got your back. Describe.ai is a natural language search engine that provides access to legal research when you need it the most. Powered by AI to help humans search more than 3 million judicial summaries in both English and Spanish. This app is completely free because access to justice is this company's why. Visit Describe.ai to find the case law that has your back. That's DESCRYBE.ai.
All right, folks, welcome back to the fourth and final segment here on the Tuesday afternoon edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN Radio Central. You can join the conversation for the remainder of the hour at 508-871-7000, 508-871-7000. So just an update, because we have this CBS situation with Trump. I mean, he's got 15 million from the Stephanopoulos thing, but now the 60 Minutes. Remember they did the Kamala Harris interview, and it immediately raised a lot of suspicious about the editing and the editing bias, and Trump had turned this request from 60 Minutes down at that time. This is back in October, right, of 24, and I think it aired October 6th, but he knew. He knew. That's why mostly all of the conservative or Republican politicians and candidates always, when they go to these interviews, they always have their people put a camera up just to record them recording the interview because of the editing that can happen. So Bill Whitaker asked Harris about Netanyahu not listening to the Biden administration, other questions. The broadcast version showed calm, coherent Harris. The unedited transcript obtained after Trump demanded it showed, well, classic Kamala, right? The word salad, the awkward and confused look, the do we have another box of wine look going on. And the edited piece aired right before the election in 24, and it raised a lot of red flags about media interference. And then don't get it wrong at all, folks. These outlets, ABC, NBC, CNN, MSNBC, they have basically done nothing short of in-kind contributions. In-kind contribution, if you're not familiar with the term, is how you describe something that you donate to a campaign that's not actually money. So if you're a printer and you print flyers for a candidate and don't charge them, that's in-kind contribution. You give them something in kind as a contribution, and they're supposed to record that. There's a value put on it. You got to put it in your reporting. But since then, Trump filed a $20 billion lawsuit. Actually, it was 10 initially. You have to double digit 20. Against CBS and parent company Paramount Global. And he's calling it what it is, election interference. We've seen the reports on the negative coverage of Trump, positive coverage percent. It's 94, 95% negative on Trump. So the key facts with this, of course, is CBS edited Harris's answers to make her appear more articulate and in control, likely to avoid further embarrassment during campaign season. And this wasn't editing for time again, folks. This was actually taking her to answering something else and putting it after the question that got her all discombobulated and confused. It was a production. It wasn't an interview. The unedited transcript finally made public. It shows an incredibly stark difference from what we saw and what aired on 60 Minutes. And as I said, he initially did a $10 billion suit and doubled it to 20. Shockingly, the edited 60-minute segment has now been nominated for a Grammy. Yeah, a Grammy. Something that they're dealing with a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit for, well, falsifying it. There's no way to put it. They chopped it up and they made a production. Meanwhile, CBS aired a recent 60-minute segment, The Rule of Law. And that clearly framed Trump as an enemy of democracy, which is a term they like to use all the time. But nobody ever asked the follow-up question. How so? How do you mean that? How is he an enemy of democracy?
Can you give me an example?
Exactly. Explain it to me. Point to what's the constitutional crisis you keep referencing. Because most of the time we know you don't have a grasp on the Constitution, probably even haven't read it, because you refer to illegal aliens as citizens. And you talk about due process because as if you think that means like a criminal trial opposed to just the legal process required for something. And Scott Pelley, right, the correspondent, appeared emotional, lamenting Trump's targeting of law firms like Perkin Cole. I mean, that's the other thing. So they have this Jamoke on there who orchestrated that whole hoax. These people, they keep giving liars and scam artists the time instead of doing real journalist work and asking real tough questions because they're so biased and slanted. So Trump claims media manipulation and legal industry corruption. He's seeking damages for election interference. I think he has the right to. In the CBS Paramount, which is a shame. I like Paramount Plus. I mean, come on, they're behind The Godfather. They've made incredible movies, and they happen to own this. I wish they'd get rid of it. But they're accused of blatant bias and editing to favor Democrats. And we're not surprised by that. Kamala Harris protected from ridicule by editorial staffs, program directors, news directors all the time. Mark Ellis, Democratic super lawyer, deeply involved in 2016 Steele dossier. And they laundered the money to the Perkins Cove in the Hillary campaign. And this guy, Ellis is trying to, portray as the victim. And Pelley, once a journalist, now performing emotional monologues here. And then you got the whole U.S. District Judge Howell struck down one Trump executive order targeting Perkins Cole, citing constitutional violations. So we have a lot of controversies with this. Biased editing on CBS, selectively airing polished version of Harrison's answer, suppressing the embarrassing original stuff. Media as a partisan actor, CBS increasingly seen as propaganda, not journalism. But that goes across the board for a lot of what we call legacy media. Mark Ellis's history, instrumental in funding and facilitating the Steele dossier, later sanctioned for unethical behavior in court. Trump's executive order versus the law firm, limiting legal access and contracts for firms that he sees as partisan tools. So free speech or retaliation, legal and constitutional pushback against Trump's efforts to hold these firms accountable. In a $1 billion pro bono quid pro quo, right? Trump, where'd that come from? Trump encouraged firms to do free work for causes like veterans or law enforcement. And now the left want to say that raises both ethical and political questions. I don't think that seems to be consistent with a man who doesn't take a salary and donates it back to different departments in the government. So I'm not sure. Mainstream media credibility continues to erode, folks. And Trump's legal fight could set precedent on how media can or cannot influence elections. I think that absolutely has to be under control. So this lawsuit, if successful, could cripple CBS and signal a massive shakeup in legacy journalism. Again, $15 million for Steffi Stephanopoulos comments. Mark Ellis, once a behind-the-scenes political operative, now he's front and center, but with serious ethical baggage, guys. So let's get real. This wasn't editing for time. This wasn't editing for optics. CBS cut out Kamalia's gibberish so she wouldn't look like she was auditioning for a high school improv group. Bottom line on that. And they're not hiding their bias anymore. Scott Pelley nearly cried on the air while painting Mark Ellis as a hero. Sorry, folks, you don't get to weep over a guy who helped pump the Russian collusion hoax and then got sanctioned for lack of candor. And how is it an attack on the rule of law when Trump challenges the very people who weaponize the legal system to undermine his presidency? Trump may be fighting fire with fire, but at least he's not doing it in the shadows. So if a media outlet deliberately edits footage to protect a candidate days before an election, how is that not election interference? Do CBS and 60 Minutes even qualify as journalism anymore? Or are they just PR for the DNC with better lighting and sounder guys? Bill O'Reilly said it. CBS, once again, did not present the full story on the jihad against Donald Trump. Shame on them. Trump might walk away from this with not only $30 billion, but with CBS in his back pocket at this rate. 60 Minutes may soon become 30 seconds of apologies. So we'll have to watch that and see where that is going. And in case we're against the clock, but in case you missed this, by the way, radical campus activity at University of Washington last night. Antifa militants occupied an engineering building at the University of Washington in Seattle. The occupation included arson, property destruction, police resistance, explicit support for terrorism against Israel and against U.S. law enforcement. $100 million building they damaged. It just opened a week ago, and it was funded by taxpayers, private donors, and companies, Amazon, Boeing, T-Mobile. But multiple fires were set. Police and firefighters initially stayed back from the situation as it escalated. But Antifa militants, there are about 8 of them, they blocked the streets with dumpsters, barricades, gathered rocks to attack the police, forced security and SPD negotiators to actually retreat. Radicals even brought in supplies to hunker down. They bought food, water, coolers, preparing for long-term occupation. Now, they did make arrests eventually around 11 p.m. after dispersal orders were ignored. So we'll watch it. Antifa. Folks, it's going to wrap up the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN Radio Central. Back tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock. Same bat time, same bat channel. Don't forget to follow me on my social media platforms at Joe Mangi Show, M-A-N-G-I, Joe Mangi Show. All right, folks, Joe out.